The Dothraki Sea had two colours at dawn, ash and promise. The wind combed the grass so it lay all one way for a heartbeat, then another, like a city bowing and forgetting why. Drogon crouched behind her, all hot iron and wet leather smell, the rasp of scale on scale as he breathed. Home is smoke, she thought. Home is where he is. They had flown through night until her thighs cracked and her eyes poured grit. Drogon would not go east when she asked it of him, nor west when she begged. He hunted where he would, horse and aurochs, the dark, swift little deer that died like a question, and slept on the hill of black stone she had named for lost Dragonstone. He had no words. He had hunger and heat, and a temper like a storm. Still, he came when she called, sometimes, and that was more than she had ever been given by Meereen. The riders found her at noon, and the grass found its own wind around their horses' legs. Banners snapped, brown handprints, a torn sun, a painted wolf with too many teeth. Men laughed as they circled, the kind of laughter that means we have already decided what you are. Their harebells said victory to one another, while their lathies said hurry to their mounts. Thoughtful Khal Jako, Daenerys said aloud, in their tongue, and the nearest men looked grateful to be recognised by a woman they meant to bind. You grew small, Jako. Jaco's mouth bent. Kharleen have sharp tongues, he said, and made a negligent pass with his hand that let other men show their courage for him. They were courteous. They did not strike her. They did not need to. 10 spears make a road. They took her to the Mother of Mountains before dusk. Vaes Dothrak had the colour of old bones. The city had no walls and all the walls in the world. Its borders were made by custom and fear and the memory of what men had seen done beneath the shadow of the Mother. The Dosh Kharleen waited in their tatters and jewels, the old and the older, thin wrists heavy with a youth's gold. The Khalasars had come as they always did to show off their blades and hide their doubts. To count. Daenerys let them count her. This one broke the law, said a crone with coins sewn over one blind eye. She would not come to us when her Khal died. She took a crown and a city. She made eunuchs kings and slaves men. She bled the grass with iron sandals. She hatched dragons, said another, thin as a whip. She forgot to ask the mother's leave. Jako squatted with his hands over his knees, a man pretending patience. Around him other Khals sprawled or perched or preened, each certain the others were pretending something worse. The smoke from the temple hearth climbed into the dusk and then remembered to sink. I have broken more than your law, Daenerys said. I have broken chains. Murmurs crawled like ants. Somewhere a horse stamped, and every man present thought of the horse he would lose and loved it more because he would. You will be judged, said Jako, not looking at her, as if it were a politeness to speak to the fire instead. Dosh Kharleen will give you to the temple. You will learn the quiet years. You will remember your mother's mother's mother. You will not see the sea again. She looked past him to the dark mouth of the temple, and the coals inside it winked like sly red eyes. They will take your mouth and give you memory, a voice in her said, the one that sounded like ships leaving. They will make your fire a story others tell. Is that what you crossed deserts for? The wind changed. Drogon's smell came before his shape. Heads turned. Men rose because men are braver standing. He was too large for their memories, larger than what they had seen last, larger than the story they had told afterward to make their fear come to heel. His wings bit the light and took it for himself. The horses went mad first, as horses always do, and the men remembered that they had hands only when they reached for reins. Shevorsa, someone breathed, dragon, a word that belonged to children and overproud old men until it had a shadow. Daenerys lifted her arm. Drogon's head swung to that small motion the way a hawk will look at the last mouse in a field where it has already eaten two. He made a sound that was not a word and not a roar, all hunger and recognition. Mine. You will not take me to the quiet years, Daenerys said, to Jarko, to the Dosh Khaleen, to the city with no walls, to the grass that had eaten her husband and her son and spat up their bones as stories. She said it in the Dothraki that had been given to her as a bride price, and in the common that she had sharpened herself, and in the soft old Valyrian that remembered a world where mountains wore crowns. Then she said nothing more. She walked into the temple. The elders followed, and the Khals and the curious, because men love a judgment when it is not theirs. The hearth was a low red animal. The air inside had the taste of old milk and wood that had been burned a little years ago and then forgotten. Braziers watched from the corners like old men with cataracts. I will not be your sister, Daenerys told the crones. I have sisters already. She touched her breast where her heart lived, and thought of a city that was not hers, and of a boy she had not freed, and of a man in white enamel who would not bend to age. She thought, too, of 3 small skulls that had once been stone, and now were not. Jarko laughed. You will be, he said. Daenerys said a word that was not a word, not in Dothraki, and not in Valyrian, and not in any tongue men made. Drogon answered because names are older than language. He shouldered the temple's mouth as if the place had been built for him, and only forgot to say so, and the coals remembered they were cousins to his breath. Drogon! He poured himself forward. The first gout of flame was white at the root, and green where it found air, and red where it found the old wood sap, and black where it met the smoke of itself. The front rank of men brought up their arms because men always try to lift something between themselves and the thing that is coming. The flame stepped over their lathes. The braziers shrugged and decided to live loudly after all. It took her face, and then her dress, and then her hair, and the pain came quick and honest, and then went away as if a door had shut between them. She had known this language before, in a place of smoke and grief, and the part of her that belonged to ash remembered how to listen. Unburnt, they had called her once, as if it were a pretty name, a thing on a singer's tongue. No, she thought as the world went to gold around her. This is not pretty. It is hunger. She stepped forward. Cloth, surprised into light, peeled from her in ragged banners and then in nothing at all. Skin that should have screamed made a brighter silence. The ends of her hair made brief stars and went out. She walked until she stood in the white of it, and the white did not say no. And she raised her hand, and the flame leaned because an old thing in it remembered her mother's mother's mother, and older still. Around her, men died and learned what their words were worth. The Dosh Khaleen's wails made a sound older than law. The pillars took fire from their own memory. The roof shook its dust down like snow. Somebody, one of the brave ones who bring water to other men's fires and think the water will always win, ran in with a skin and ran out without a face. Drogon's breath found the rafters, found the lintels, found the seams where old wood dreams of being a tree again, and then dreams of nothing. Daenerys walked out of the temple when it remembered it had a sky. The doorframe fell behind her and remembered it had a ground. She was naked, and it mattered less than hunger. The light made a crown of the air around her head and a necklace of her collarbone and a language of her skin. People love miracles only until they have to bow to them. The Dothraki were already on their knees. She spoke Dothraki because a queen should use the words her people count their dead in. Vaes Shafkia, she cried. Look and know. Fine yeri vekan. See what is before you. She put her hand on Drogon's snout where the scales were smallest, where the heat came out like breath after a run. Hashir vekan je kalasar.
She did not have the perfect words for what the crones had promised her once, the stallion who mounts the world. So she made the meaning instead. And meanings have always ruled men better than grammar. You look upon Drogon, she told them, and the Dothraki tongue fell obediently into the shapes she needed it to make. You look upon the stallion. She pointed to the ranks of men, to their bells and their scars, and the horses that had not yet remembered to fear again. If you would ride with the Khal of Khals, stand. If you would be trampled, kneel longer. They stood, because standing is a habit among men who like to live. Khals, she said softly, to Jarko and to those who would be Jarko if she were not careful. Choose. You may be first or last, or nothing. I do not care which, so long as you ride Drogon. Made a sound that made the horses stamp, as if they wished their hooves were cleverer. She climbed him where the scale made a ladder, and the heat made a gentler hurt than loneliness. He let her because he had already decided what she was. Vorsa, she whispered. Fly. And he did. The grass flattened and sprang back. The Khals' banners lay down for a heartbeat, then rose to chase her shadow. They rose with the smoke still writing itself in crooked letters over the temple. At a little height, the world had new edges. The mother of mountains wore a bright necklace of fleeing men. The horse herds had remembered how to flow. The air up here tasted of iron and fate. Make them hear, she said, and Drogon filled his chest. He painted a road of fire up the sky until the night decided to arrive early. Below, men shouted the way men do when they believe they have chosen their own fear. The Khalasars moved in a way that meant war, not the quick, tidy kind, but the long kind that choose the names off maps. Marine, Daenerys said into the wind, because names are ropes too. Astapor, Yunkai, Marine, hear me. I am coming with hunger. Drogon banked, a living scythe. Banners ran like rivers. Bells rang themselves hoarse. Daenerys looked west and saw smoke that did not belong to her, and a thin, cruel gleam that might have been sunlight on water or on steel. She did not try to name it. She had already named what mattered. Dracarys, she told the sky, and the sky learned what fire meant. They flew on. Beneath them, all the Dothraki rose, a brown sea with bells for foam, and the roar they made had the taste of salt, though there was no water in it. Drogon's heart beat under her legs like a war drum. The world lay down its doubts in front of them and pretended they were roads. Toward Marine, then, toward a city that had forgotten how to be hers, toward men who had not yet learned how to lose. She gave the horizon a smile it could keep. Ryesh and Dali, she told it, the land of the Andals. And all the lands after. But first, home.